Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at Hymen's triumph, a pastoral tragi-comedy presented at the Queen's Court in the Strand at Her Majesty's a magnificent entertainment of the King's most excellent Majesty, being of the nuptials of the Lord Roxburgh in 1614 by Samuel Daniel. Well, say 1614 technically because it was February. It's still sort of 1613. Depending on when you want to say your new year is. But as a good early modernist will say, it's still 1613, so there. So yes, this is the last of our Samuel Daniel play texts. We have got more explicitly courtly entertainment of a masky kind to come in the future, and there might be some other bits and bobs that he wrote, or reiterations of things that we've already done before what he wrote. But in terms of getting a general overview of his dramatic output, this is our last play. We're doing it over 2 sessions, and we're going to crack on with it with reasonable alacrity. Reading today, Jealousy and Phillis is not responding.
Me.
And you are?
Tom from Brighton.
Excellent. Reading Avarice and Clarindo is...
Hi, I'm arrogant. I feel typecast again.
Reading Envy, Cloris and Silvanus is...
Oh, sorry. I even forgot who I was then. Hi, I'm Greg. This day can't get any more surreal than it already is.
Well, we'll see about that. Reading Thyrsis and Lidia is...
Liza Graham, in London. I know the feeling.
Reading Hymen, Song and Montanus is...
Rachael, actor on the East Coast. I was going to say something cheeky, but I'll keep it to myself.
And finally reading To the Most Excellent Majesty of the Highest-Born Princess Anne of Denmark, Queen of England, Scotland, France and Ireland, as well as Palaemon and Dorcas, is...
Angela, here in London, a historian.
And I'll be your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and moving us swiftly on. So we have this little bit of bump. I don't think this is necessarily performative. It's not quite certain whether this is just more for a presentational text or whether this is actually performed. But we will begin with it. To the Most Excellent Majesty of the Highest-Born Princess Anne of Denmark, Queen of England, Scotland, France and Ireland.
Here, what your sacred influence begat, most loved and most respected Majesty, with humble heart and hand I consecrate unto the glory of your memory, as being a piece of that solemnity which your magnificence did celebrate in hallowing of these roofs you reared of late, with fires and cheerful hospitality, whereby and by your splendid worthiness your name shall longer live than shall your walls. For that fair structure goodness finishes, bears off all change of times, and never falls. And that is it hath let you in so far into the heart of England as you are, and worthily, for never yet was queen the more a people's love hath merited, by all good graces, and by having been the means of our state, stands fast established, and blessed by your blessed womb, who are this day the highest born queen of Europe, and alone have brought this land more blessings every way than all the daughters of strange kings have done. For we by you no claims, no quarrels have, no factions, no betraying of affairs. You do not spend our blood nor states, but save. You strengthen us by alliance, and your heirs not like those fatal marriages of France, for whom this kingdom hath so dearly paid, which only our afflictions did advance, and brought us far more miseries than aid. Renowned Denmark, that hath furnished the world with princes, how much do we owe to thee for this great good thou didst bestow, whereby we are both blessed and honoured. Thou didst not so much hurt us heretofore, but now thou hast rewarded us far more. But what do I on this high subject fall, here in the front of this low pastoral? This a more grave and spacious room requires to show your glory and my deep desires. Your Majesty's most humble servant, Samuel Daniel.
And we'll move straight on to the prologue. Hymen, opposed by avarice, envy, and jealousy, the disturbers of quiet marriage, first enters.
In this disguise and pastoral attire, without my saffron robe, without my torch, or other ensigns of my duty, I, Hymen, am come hither secretly, to make Arcadia see a work of glory that shall deserve an everlasting story. Here shall I bring you to the most entire and constant lovers that were ever seen, from out the greatest sufferings of annoy that fortune could inflict, to their full joy, wherein no wild, no rude, no antique sport, but tender passions, motions soft and grave, the still spectators mast expect to have. For these are only Cynthia's recreatives made unto Phoebus, and are feminine, and therefore must be gentle like to her, whose sweet affections mildly move and stir. And here, with this white wand, will I effect as much as with my flaming torch of love, and with the power thereof, affections move in this fair nymphs and shepherds round about.
Stay, Hymen, stay. You shall not have the day of this great glory, as you make account. We will, excuse me, we will herein, as we were ever wont, oppose you in the matches you address, and undermine them with disturbances.
Now do thy worst, base envy. Thou canst do. Thou shalt not disappoint my purposes.
Then will I, Hymen, in spite of thee, I will make parents cross desires of love with those respects of wealth, as shall dissolve the strongest knots of kindest faithfulness.
Hence, greedy Avarice, I know thou art a hag that dost bewitch the minds of men, yet shalt thou have no power at all herein.
Then will I, Hymen, do thou what thou canst. I will steal closely into linked hearts, and shake their veins with cold distrustfulness, and ever keep them waking in their fears with spirits which their imagination rears.
Disquiet jealousy, vile fury, thou that art the ugly monster of the mind, avaunt, begone, thou shalt have naught to do in this fair work of ours, nor evermore canst enter there, where honor keeps the door. And therefore, hideous furies, get you hence. This place is sacred to integrity and clean desires. Your sight most loathsome is unto so well-disposed a company. Therefore begone. I charge you by my power, we must have nothing in Arcadia sour.
Hymen, thou canst not chase us so away, for look how long as thou makest marriages, so long will we produce encumbrances, and we will in the same disguise as thou mix us among the shepherds, these shepherds, that we may effect our work the better, being unknown, for ill show other faces than their own.
Exuent with the crowd going, boo! I mean, it's very, very panto intro, isn't it? You know, I am the good fairy, and we are the bad people, and it's all in rhyme. And it's quite playful. It's a good opening gambit. Any brief thoughts before we move on into the main action of the text, as it were? We've got the opening gambit. Nuptials are good, and envy, avarice, and jealousy will disrupt them. Eric.
I like how the vices just kind of, it's like sort of, I don't know, not quite a fight, but like it's like sort of envy goes, stay, you won't have this happiness, and then avarice goes, then will I, and then obviously the next person comes in, then will I, kind of like superhero moment, except it's a super villain moment. I don't know, it just like sort of, yeah, that's how kind of how I felt. And then with envy's last speech, it's like going into stealth mode.
Yeah, there's something really dynamic about it in the way they sort of confront each other. Vices assemble. Liza.
Yes, I like that. I like that Hymen tries to banish the vices and can't, because this is a play about human relationships, and vices and virtues are both part of that. So, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, we get this in so many morality plays. They're never wholly vanquished. A part of the evil always comes back. There's a ring on the floor at the end. You know it's going to be revivified at the next movie. Anyway, let's
crack. In Arcadia ego.
Act 1, Scene 1. So we've had our prologue. Let's go into the action on various dialogues a lot of the time, but let's see where it goes. Act 1, Scene 1. Enter Thyrsis and Palaemon.
So to be reft of all the joys of life, how is it possible, Palaemon, I should evermore a thought retain of the least comfort upon earth again? No, I would hate this heart that hath received so deep a wound, if it should ever come to be re-cured, or would permit a room to let in any other thing than grief.
But Thyrsis, you must tell me what is the cause.
Think but what cause I have, when, having passed the heats, the colds, the trembling agonies of fears and hopes, and all the strange assaults of passion, that a tender heart could feel in the attempt and pursuit of his love, and then to be undone when all was done, to perish in the haven after all those ocean sufferings, and even then to have my hopeful nuptial bed turned to a grave.
Good Thyrsis, by what means? I pray thee tell.
Tell thee? Alas, Palaemon, how can I tell and live? Dost thou not see these fields have lost their glory since that time Silvia was lost? Silvia, that only decked, that only made Arcadia shine. Silvia who was, woe the while, so miserabilmente from off the world, so rapt away, as that no sign of her, no peace was left to tell us by what means, save only this poor remnant of her veil, all torn, and this dear lock of her rent hair, which holy relics I keep here with me, the sad memorials of her dismal fate, who sure devoured was upon the shore by ravenous beasts, as she was walking there, alone it seems, perhaps in seeking me, or else retired to meditate apart the story of our loves and heavy smart.
This is no news you tell of Silvia's death. That was long since. Why should you wail her now?
Long since, Palaemon, think you any length of time can ever have a power to make a heart of flesh not mourn, not grieve, not pine, that knows, that feels, that thinks as much as mine?
But Thyrsis, you know how her father meant to match her with Alexis, and the day to celebrate the nuptials was prefixed.
True, he had such a purpose, but in vain, as it was best known unto us twain, and hence it grew that gave us both our fears, that made our meeting stealth, our parting tears. Hence was it that with many a secret wile we robed our looks the onlookers to beguile. This was the cause, miserable cause, that made her by herself to stray alone, which else, God knows, she never should have done. For had our liberty as open been as was our love's, Silvia had not been seen without her Thyrsis, never had we gone but hand in hand, nor ever had mischance took us asunder. She had always had my body interposed betwixt all harms and her. But, we had our liberty laid fast in prison when our loves were free.
But how knowest thou her love was such to thee?
How do I know the sun, the day from night?
Women's affections do like flashes prove. They oft show passion when they feel small love.
Do not so profane that precious sex, which I must ever reverence for her sake, who was the glory of her kind, whose heart in all her actions so transparent was as I might see it clear, and wholly mine, always observing truth in one right line. How oft she hath been urged by father's threats, by friends' persuasions, and Alexis' sighs, and tears and prayers to admit his love, yet never could be won. How oft have I beheld the bravest herdsman of these plains, as what brave herdsman was there in the plains of all Arcadia that had not his heart warmed with her beams, to seek to win her love? I remember well, and how can I but ever remember well, when first our flame began, when scarce we knew what was the flame we felt, when as we sat and sighed and looked upon each other, and conceived not what we ailed, yet something we did ail, and yet were well, and yet we were not well, and what was our disease we could not tell. Then would we kiss, then sigh, then look, and thus in that first garden of our simpleness we spent our childhood. But when years began to reap the fruit of knowledge, how then would she with graver looks, with sweet stern brow, check my presumption and my forwardness, yet still would give me flowers, still would me show what she would have me, yet not have me know.
Alas, with what poor coin are lovers paid, and taken with the smallest bait is laid.
And when in sports with other company of nymphs and shepherds we have met abroad, how would she steal a look and watch mine eye which way it went? And when at barley break it came unto my turn to rescue her, with what an earnest, swift, and nimble pace would her affection make her feet to run and further run than to my hand. Her race had no stop but my bosom where to end. And when we were to break again, how late and loath her trembling hand would part with mine, and with how slow a pace would she set forth to meet the encountering party who contends to attain her, scarce affording him her fingers' ends.
Fie, Thyrsis, with what fond remembrances dost thou these idle passions entertain? For shame, leave off to waste your youth in vain, and feed on shadows. Make your choice anew. You other nymphs shall find, no doubt will be as lovely and as fair and sweet as she.
As fair and sweet as she? Palaemon, peace. What can pictures be unto the life? What sweetness can be found in images, which all else nymphs beside her seems to me? She only was a real creature, she whose memory must take up all of me. Should I another love, then must I have another heart, for this is full of her, and evermore shall be. Here is she drawn at length and whole and more. This table is a story, and is all of her, and all wrought in the liveliest colours of my blood. And can there be a room for others here? Should I disfigure such a place, and blot the perfectst workmanship love ever wrought? Palaemon, no, no, it costs too dear. It must remain entire while life remains, the monument of her and of my pains.
Thou mayest be such a fond idolater to die for love, though that were very strange. Love hath few saints, but many confessors, and time, no doubt, will raise out all these notes, and leave a room at length for other thoughts.
Yes, when there is no spring, no tree, no grove in all Arcadia to record our love. And tell me where we were, the time we were, how we did meet together, what we said, where we did joy, and where we sat dismayed. then I may forget her, not before. Till then, I must remember one so dear, when everything I see tells me of her. And you, dear relics of that martyred saint my heart adores, you, the perpetual books whereon when tears permit mine eye still looks, you were with her last, until my last you must remain with me. You were reserved to tell me she was lost, but yet, alas, you cannot tell me how. I would you could. White spotless veil, clean like her womanhood, that whilom covered the most holy face that ever I beheld. Was there no message sent from her by thee? Ah, yes, it seems there was. Here is a T made with her blood, as if she would have written, Thyrsis, I am slain in seeking thee. Sure, so it should have been. And so I read it, and shall ever so. And thou, sweet remnant of the fairest hair that ever waved with wind, thee I found when her I hoped to find, wrapped in a round like to an O, the character of woe, as if to say, O Thyrsis, I die thine. This much you tell me, yet dumb messengers of her last mind, and what you cannot tell, that must I think, which is the most extreme of woefulness that any heart can think.
There's no dealing with this man, I see. This humour must be let to spend itself unto a lesser substance, ere that we can anyway supply a remedy. But I lament his case, and so I know do all that see him in this woeful plight. And therefore will I leave him to himself, for sorrow that is full hates others' sight.
Come, boy, whilst I contemplate these remains of my lost love under this myrtle tree, record the dolefullest song, the sighingest notes that music hath to entertain bad thoughts. Let it be all at flats, my boy, all grave, the tone that best befits the grief I have.
And the song.
Had sorrow.
Ooh, no, we have a song. We have a boy prepared for you.
Oh, you
Liza.
have a boy.
Yeah.
I'm terribly sorry to sing over you, dear boy. Please sing.
Had sorrow ever fitter place to act his part than is my heart, when it takes up all the space, where is no vein to entertain a thought that wears another face. Nor will I sorrow ever have therein to be, but only thee, to whom I full possession gave. Thou in thy name must hold the same, until thou bring it to the grave.
And now we pop back to Thyrsis, I think, for these last two lines. I apologise, it's not marked in your script, Liza.
So, boy, now leave me to myself, that I may be alone to grief, entire to misery.
And exit. We're going to go straight on, however much there's some really nice stuff in there I want to discuss later on, but we'll get some compare and contrast first as we go to Act 1, Scene 2, and now we have enter Cloris and Clarindo.
Now, gentle boy Clarindo, hast thou brought my flocks into the field?
Mistress, I have.
And hast thou told them?
Yes.
And are there all?
All
And hast thou left them safe, my boy?
safe.
Then whilst they feed, Clarindo, I must use thy service in a serious business, but thou must do it well, my boy.
The best I can.
Dost thou know Thyrsis?
Yes.
But knowst him well?
I have good reason to know Thyrsis well.
What reason, boy?
I oft have seen the man.
Why, then he knows thee too?
Yes, I suppose, unless he hath forgotten me of late.
But hath he heard thee sing, my boy?
He hath.
Doubtless he doth well remember thee. Well unto him thou must a message do from thy sad mistress Cloris. But thou must do it exactly well with thy best grace, best choice of language, and best countenance. I know thou canst do well and hast a speech and fashion pleasing to perform the same. Nor can I have a fitter messenger in this employment. I'm sorry. This more than thou myself, my boy, for sure methinks, noting thy form and grace, that thou hast much of Sylvia in thy face, which if he shall perceive as well as I, sure he will give thee audience willingly. And for her sake, if not for mine, hear out thy message, for he still, though she be dead, holds sparkles of her unextinguished, and that is death to me. For though sometimes Sylvia and I most dear companions were, yet when I saw he did so much prefer her before me, I deadly hated her, and was not sorry for her death, and yet was sorry she could come to such a death, but to the purpose go to Thyrsis, boy. Say thou art Cloris' servant, sent to be the messenger of her distressed tears, who languishes for him, and never shall have comfort more unless he give me her.
I will.
Nay, but stay, boy, there's something else. Tell him his cruelty makes me undo my modesty. And to put him on that part which it pertains to him, that is to woo and to disgrace my sex, to show my heart, which no man else could have had power to do. And that unless he do restore me back to myself by his like love to me, I cannot live.
All this I'll tell him too.
Nay, but stay, boy, there is yet more. Tell him it will no honour to be to him whenever it shall come to be made known that he hath been her death that was his own, and how his love been fatal been to two distressed nymphs.
This will I tell him too.
Nay, but stay, boy, wilt thou say nothing else, as of thyself to waken up his love? Thou mayst say something which I may not say, and tell him how thou holds me full as fair. Oh, yea, more fair, more lovely, more complete than ever Sylvia was. More wise, more staid. How she was but a light and wavering maid.
Nay, there I leave you. Then I cannot stay.
What sayest thou, boy?
Nothing but that I will endeavor all I can to work his love.
Do good, my boy, but thou must yet add more, as from thyself. Oh, and say, what an unkind and barbarous part it is to suffer thus so beauteous and so rare a nymph to pine and perish for his love. And such a one as if she would have stooped to others' flame, if she had had the gallant herdsman of these fields fall at her feet. Oh, which she hath despised, having a heart before by thee surprised, and now doth nothing else but sit and mourn. Speak, Thyrsis. Weep, Thyrsis! Sigh, Thyrsis! And sleep, Thyrsis, when she sleeps, which is but rare. Besides, good boy, thou must not stick to swear. Thou oft hast seen me swoon and sink to ground in these deep passions wherein I abound. For something thou mayst say beyond the truth by reason of my love and of thy use. Oh, do, good Clarindo, swear and vow thus much. But dost thou now remember all I say? Dost thou forget no parcel of my speech? Shall I repeat the same again to thee? Or if thou would rehearse it unto me, that I may know thou hast it perfect, boy.
It shall not need. Be sure I will report what you enjoin me in most earnest sort.
Ah, do, good boy. Although I fear it will avail me little, for I doubt his heart is repossessed with another love.
Another love? Who may that be, I pray?
Amaryllis! I have heard, for they are thought will in the end make up a match.
With Amaryllis? Well, yet will I go and try his humor, whether it be so.
Oh, go, good Clarinda, but thou hast not... but thou must not fail to work effectually for my avail. Do not stay. Return we speak goodbye. My passions are too great to endure delay.
And exit Cloris. Clarindo is remaining on stage, but we're going to pause there because we've got enough data, I think, to be playing with, even though there is more data to come. So we've got, I have to say, I loved Thyrsis' speeches. I thought they were really powerful. I thought all this stuff about the way, remembering the first, their how they first came together and how the flamed court, and then also just the memory of her of Sylvia in so many different places, and yeah, it's Palaemon just going, oh, just get over yourself. It's just so harsh.
Yeah, it's always kind of a challenge when you have a scene that has to establish a character who's only being talked about. And I thought that one did it quite well, very vividly. And I can see how it could be played for laughs, but I didn't want to do that. I thought the verse was good enough that it could be real. And also, the more sincere Thyrsis is, the more Palaemon is funny.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought there were some genuinely brilliant bits in there. I absolutely, and it just trips along. The verse is really, really light and airy. And Angela.
Can I just ask, isn't there a whole section in that bit, though, that I've seen before?
Are you entirely possible? I don't know. We were discussing in the chat whether there was is there an overlap with the extended Arcadian universe, because it does seem to be bits we've been dancing through in the past.
Because pages 5 and 6, at which I've got it printed, so I don't know if it works like that for you, but I just thought, I'm sure I've seen that before.
I'm just having a little look.
Is the sad shepherd also Daniel?
No, that's sad shepherd is Johnson, isn't it? Though there are other shepherds who are sad, so there might be other pastoral things. But let's say we've done the Queen's Arcadia, which is very much set within the same universe, though the names and relations may slightly differ. I'm not noticing anyone having noted such things. I'm just trying to find additional notes. No, not seeing anything that anyone else has noted. That's not to say it hasn't. You may have noted something, that indeed is out there, but I can't see anything.
I think it might have been a tragedy we were doing. Somebody who, and that barley break thing, where, and then, I loved her. She gave me all these slight hints that she loved me too. I'd have to go and look, watch one it is, but it just is very familiar.
Yeah, cool.
Can I just say the singing was superb.
Very good.
Sinatra.
So good. I love Rachael's jazz diva voice. I wish to hear that on the highest of stages, getting paid all the millions of dollars.
And it does seem that there is a separate boy who comes on and sings at that moment.
Yes, I wondered if Clarindo were also the boy's servant, but I
seems
suppose
to be Cloris's, so I don't know.
I suppose he just has an apprentice shepherd with him.
There's just lots of singing boys wandering around. It's that kind of show. You just turn a corner and it's like having connected speakers around the house. You just and Alexa, play me, boy, play me a song, and then as say we go to having heard all about Thyrsis' love for Sylvia, we go to Cloris, who is quite keen on Thyrsis and just going, oh, he's always going on about his ex. Who's dead.
She's a bit mean, that Cloris. You played her mean, Greg.
Yeah. She might not be mean. She might be very genuine.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry, but that text was that. I don't think I was too far from the text in that interpretation. I mean, I loved the whole thing, and it was really difficult. It's really difficult to get it across on the Zoom. I loved the whole thing of Boy Come Back.
Yeah.
I mean, it was literally. You can imagine. You could do the stage business for that would be fab because you do it. So I think you'd end up with the boy getting further and further away.
Well, and also the boy getting less sure whether he should bother making the journey and sort of just lingering for a bit and sort of just checking and then, okay, no, that's it this time. Oh, for God's sake. Yeah, there's a real game to be played between the two actors in that. Eric.
Yeah, I felt like it was kind of like I should actually be standing up and doing the whole thing of like, I'm just gonna, I have this thing, you told me to go get the stuff and do the thing, and then shall I go? And then like, nay, stay, boy. I'm like, okay.
And we've got this boy, and I love the way the boy, is going, keeps telling the boy, now tell him this. And when it says, tell him that Sylvia wasn't all that, and he's going, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to say that. Oddly enough. A, I don't think it's going to work, and B, I might have other reasons for going myself anyway. Reaction, because Cloris is also worried there are rivals because Amaryllis is apparently quite keen as well. So, she's got to get in quick, because everybody obviously wants Thyrsis. They're eyeing him up.
I love the bit where she says, and tell him I'm constantly just falling on the ground with passion.
One demands enacting. I want a demonstration of that.
You know what would be funny is if they had a trampoline in the story.
So I mean, there's something really. I mean, it's chosen or designed for a wedding context, though not necessarily that its initial inception. You can feel this is good. This is good stuff for that kind of thing. It's light, it's fun. Let's see where it's going to go because plot twist. Clarindo speaks. The little boy.
There's this in love with Amaryllis. Then, in what case am I? What doth avail that this altered habit that belies my sex? What boots it to have escaped from pirates' hands, and with such wiles to have deceived their wills if I return to fall on worser ills? In love with Amaryllis. Is that so? Is Sylvia then forgot, that hath endured so much for him? Do all these miseries caused by his means deserve no better hire? Was it the greatest comfort of my life to have returned that I might comfort him? And am I welcomed thus? Did mine eyes never take rest after I was arrived until I had seen him, though unknown to him, being hidden thus and covered with a disguise in masculine attire to temporize until Alexis' marriage day be past, which surely as I hear will be, and which would free me wholly from my father's fear, who if he knew I were returned would yet undo, I doubt, that match to match me there, which would be more than all my sufferings were. Indeed, I thought when I beheld the face of my dear Thyrsis, I beheld the face confounded all with passion, which did much afflict my heart. But yet I little thought it could have been for any other's love. I did suppose the memory of me and of my rapture had possessed him so, and as made him show that countenance of woe, and much ado had I then to forbear from casting me into his arms, and yield what my poor self could yield, but that I thought our joys would not have been complete, but might have yielded us annoys as great, unless I could come wholly his, and cleared from all those former dangers which we feared, which now a little stay, though any stay be death to me, would wholly take away. and therefore I resolved myself to bear this burden of our sufferings yet a while, and to become a servant in this guise. To her I would have scorned otherwise, and be at all commands to go and come, to trudge into the fields early and late, which, though I know it misbecomes my state, yet it becomes my fortune, which is that, not Phillis whom I serve, but since I serve, I will do what I do most faithfully. But Thyrsis, is it possible that thou shouldst so forget me, and forego thy vow? Or is it but a flying vain report that slanders thine affection in this sort? It may be so. God grant it may be so. I shall soon find if thou be false or no. But here comes my fury, I must fly.
And Clarindo, well, Sylvia, in disguise, not dead, tries to run away before Phillis sees him. But sadly, Phillis does. Act 1, Scene 4, enter Phillis to Clarindo.
Cruel youth, whither away so fast?
Good Phillis, do not stay me, I have haste.
What haste should thou have but to comfort me, who hath no other comfort but in thee?
Alas, thou dost but trouble me in vain. I cannot help thee. 'Tis not in my power.
Not in thy power, Clarindo? If thou hast anything of manliness, thou wouldst.
But if I have not, what doth it avail in this sort to torment thyself and me? And therefore, prithee, Phillis, let me go.
Oh, whither canst thou go? Where thou shalt be more dearly loved and cherished than with me.
But that my purpose cannot satisfy. I must be gone. There is no remedy.
Oh, cruel youth, will thy heart nothing move? Show me yet pity, if thou show me not love.
Believe me, Phillis, I do pity thee, and more lament thy error. So farewell.
And art thou gone, hard-hearted youth? Hast thou thus disappointed my desires, and left my shame afflicted me worse than my love? Now in what case am I, that neither can recall my modesty, nor thee again? Were it now to do again, my passion should have smothered me to death before I would have showed the smallest sparkle of my flame. But it is done, and I am now undone. Hast thou been a man, and had the part of understanding of a woman's heart, my words had been unborn. Only mine eyes had been a tongue enough to one were wise. But this is it, to love a boy whose years conceives not his own good, nor weighs my tears. But this disgrace I justly have deserved.
And exit Clarindo, leaving Phillis. But don't worry, Phillis isn't left alone, because enter Lidia.
So, Phillis, have you? And you're rightly served. Have you disdained the gallantest foresters and bravest herdsmen all Arcadia hath, and now in love with one is not a man? Assure yourself, this is a just revenge love takes for your misprision of his power. I told you often there would come a time when you would sure be plagued for such a crime. But you would laugh at me as one you thought conceived not of what metal you were wrought. Is this you, who would wonder any nymphs could ever be so foolish as to love? Who is so foolish now?
Peace, Lidia, peace. Add not more grief to a heart that hath too much. Do not insult upon her misery, whose flame God what needs water, not oil. Thou seest I am undone, caught in the toil of an entangling mischief. Tell me how I may recover and unwind me now.
That doth require more time. We will apart consult thereof. Be you but ruled by me, and you shall find I yet will set you free.
And they exit, leaving us behind with a song of the first chorus. You don't have to sing this, but it's entirely up to you. Song of the chorus. Song. Yes, you, yes. I know I didn't explicitly say chorus in the thing, but it's a song. So there you go.
Love is a sickness full of woes, all remedies refusing. A plant that with most cutting grows, most barren with best using. Why so? More we enjoy it, more it dies. If not enjoyed, its sighing cries, hey how! Love is a torment of the mind, a tempest everlasting, and love hath made it of a kind, not well, nor full, nor fasting. Why so? More we enjoy it, more it dies. If not enjoyed, its sighing cries, hey ho!
And thus ends Act 1. We've definitely got a bit of music living throughout the whole thing, not just on stage, but also to close the things. And who knows, you've probably got lots of foresters coming in randomly dancing in the background, because they're all supposed to be quite gallant, so presumably there's some quite hot foresters about.
Definite hot foresters and maybe some satyrs.
Yeah. Nymphs, just general nymph action. I think we've got all the cards are available here. Eric.
I mean, it's basically men in tights, isn't it? Just like we're men.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lydia's quite mean here because Phillis is, we all know, chasing. What I mean, we don't know actually. Is chasing Clarindo. Clarindo has no interest in her whatsoever. And Lydia's quite, just going, well, you said no to all the hot foresters. Look where you are now. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Lydia's being cruel to be kind. I don't know.
It's possible that she just comes in and she's like, haha, it sucks to be you. And, and then Phillis asks her for advice, and it strikes me that this might not be the best person to ask.
But isn't she effectively the female version of Palaemon? That's his name.
Ah, yes. The person who is talked to, who just is, who...
Yeah, it's just waiting for you to get over it so that then you can do something sensible.
Yeah, maybe once the roasting is done with, actually good advice comes and all is well. Angela, sorry.
I think her advice is going to be singularly dodgy and have a lot of foresters involved.
Hey.
So many foresters. So many.
Okay. And say we have this. I say we haven't really talked about Sylvia, and of course Sylvia and Phillis, and there's nice little twists to this narrative. Nice playing around with it. We don't ever have that many people on stage at any one time, but they're sort of bouncing into each other quite nicely, and then one bounces on and it bounces somebody off. Though Clarindo did actually exit much earlier than I stated. That's just the convention, I think, of this is that stage exits and entrances are only mentioned at the end of scenes. Eric.
Yeah, it's interesting how Clarindo / Sylvia is basically like, shit, here she comes, I have to leave, but then seems to collide with the person, with Phillis, or I don't know. Is it sort of like being chased? It's kind of hard to tell. Because I picture it sort of like, okay, shit, where do I go? And then just running towards whichever ways, and it looks like an exit. But then it might just be like trying to run off in a calm fashion, and then sort of, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely haste, but how big the stage is a question. Which actually is a question we might be able to find out the answer to in practical terms. So there might not be room for them to do much actual running off. It might also be the reason why there's so few people on stage at any one time. I don't know if that changes as we go on. So that might be a purely pragmatic reason for the relative drop, but it's still bouncing along really well. I mean, it's using its forces really nicely. I'm really enjoying this. Okay, any other thoughts before we dive into Act 2? No, okay. Act 2, Scene 1. Enter Silvanus, Dorcas, and Montanus. 3 people on stage. We haven't had this since the prologue.
Oh, this sounds dangerous. I better wear my hard hat. Right. In what a mean regard are we now held, we active and laborious foresters? Those who are living ruralby and rough, yet heretofore we for valour prized, and well esteemed in all good companies, nor with the daintiest nymphs that valleys haunt or fields inhabit, ever have despised our sylvan songs, nor yet our plain discourse, but gracefully accepted of our skill, and often of our loves, when they have seen how faithful and how constant we have been.
Oh, it's true, Silvanus. But you see, the times are altered now, and they so dainty grown, and it's all by being adored and wooed and followed so by those unsinewed amorous herdsmen, who by reason of their rich and mighty flocks supply their pleasures with that plenteousness as they disdain our plainness, and do scorn our company as men rude and ill-born.
Well, so they do. But Dorcas, if you mark how oft they do miscarry in their love, and how disloyal these fine herdsmen prove, you shall perceive how their abundant store pays not their expectation nor desires. Witness these groves wherein they oft deplore the miserable passions they sustain, and how perfidious, wayward, and unkind they find their loves to be, which we, who are the eyes and ears of woods, oft see and hear. For hither to these groves they much resort, and hear what wails apart the usage hard of her disordered, wild, and wilful mates. There mourns another unhappy state, held there in restraint and in suspect, another to her trusted confident, laments how she is matched to such a one as cannot give a woman her content. Oh, to the grieves, as she have got a fool whose bed, although she loathes, she must endure. And thus they all unhappy by that means which they are come to bring all happiness, most wealthy are plagued with rich distress.
And so they are. But yet this was not wont to be the fashion here. There was a time before Arcadia came to be diseased, with these corrupted humours reigning now, the choice was made of virtue and desert, without respect of any other ends, when love was only master of their hearts and ruled alone, when simple thoughts produced plain honest deeds, and everyone contends to have his fame to follow his deserts, and not his shows, to be the same he was, not seemed to be. And then were no such parts of false deceivings played as now we see. But after that accursed greediness of wealth began to enter and possess the hearts of men, integrity was lost, and with it they themselves, for nevermore came they to be in their own power again. That tyrant vanquished them, made them all slaves, that brought base servitude into the world, which else had never been, that only made them to endure all whatsoever weight power could devise to lay upon their neck, for rather than they would not have, they would not be, but miserable. So that no device needs else to keep them under. They themselves will bear far more than they are made, themselves will add unto their fetters, rather than they would not be, or held to be, great men.
And Dorcas, how much more are we to prize our mean estate, which they so much despise, considering that we do enjoy thereby the dearest thing in nature, liberty, and are not tortured with these hopes and fears, the affliction laid on superfluities, which make them to obscure and serve the times, but are content with what the earth, the woods, and rivers may readily afford, and therewithal furnish our homely board. Those unbought cates please our unlearned throats, that understand not dainties, even as well as all their delicates, which do but stuff and not sustain the stomach. And indeed, a well-observing belly doth make much for liberty. For he that can but live, although with roots and have no hopes, is free, without the verge of any sovereignty, and is a lord at home, commands the day, and as his till night, and then reposes him at his own hours. Thinks on no stratagem, but how to take his game, hath no design to cross next day, no plots to undermine.
But why, Montanus? Do you look so sad? What is the cause? Your mind is not as free as your estate. What, have you had of late some coy repulse of your disdainful nymph, to whom love hath subdued you? Who indeed our only master is, and no lord else, but he hath any power to vex us here, which had he not, we too happy were.
In troth, I must confess, when now you two found me in yonder thicket, I had lost myself. By having seen that which I would, I had not had these eyes to see. And judge if I great reason had not to complain. You see, I am a man, though not so gay and delicately clad, as are your fine and amorous dainty herdsmen. Yet a man, and that not base, not unallied to Pan, and of a spirit doth not degenerate from my robustious manly ancestors, being never foiled in any wrestling game, but still have borne away the chiefest prize in every brave and active exercise. Yet notwithstanding that disdainful maid, proud Phillis, doth despise me and my love, and will not deign so much as hear me speak, but doth abjure, forsooth, the thought of love. Yet shall I tell you, yet ashamed to tell this coy, unloving soul I saw ere while soliciting a youth, a smooth-faced boy, whom in her arms she held, as seemed to me, being closely bushed a pretty distance off against his will, and with a strange passion urged his stay, who seemed struggled to get away. And yet she stayed him, yet entreats his stay. At which strange sight, imagine I that stood spectator, how confoundedly I stood, and hardly could forbear from running in to claim for mine, if ever love had right. Those her embraces cast away in sight, but staying to behold the end, I stayed too long. The boy gets loose, herself retires, and you came in. But if I live, that boy shall dearly pay for his misfortune. That he was beloved of her, of whom I would have nothing on earth beloved but myself.
That were to bite the stone, a thing unjust, to punish him for her conceived lust.
Many in this world we see are caught, and suffer for misfortune, not their fault.
That would not become your manliness, Montanus. 'Twere shame for valiant men to do unworthily.
Speak not of that, Silvanus. If my rage irregular be made, it must work like effects.
These are but billows tumbling after storms. They last not long. Come, let some exercise divert that humour, and convert your thoughts to know yourself. Scorn her who scorneth you. Idolatrize not so that sex, but hold a man of straw more than a wife of gold.
And exit the fit Foresters. There's a lot going on in this scene. In many ways, the only stuff that really matters in sort of, shall we say, plot terms is, of course, Montanus and Phillis' relationship that's being flagged up here. We also get a sense of the world that we're in. The shepherds. They aren't what they used to be. They've gone up in the world. Their flocks are so wealthy. They're sort of out. They slightly disdain the rough, hot foresters that we've got here. So there's something. There's a sense of different classes and different stuff going on between here. That's quite interesting. And once again, reiterating the thing: Arcadia ain't what it used to be. Liza.
Should Rachael go first? Or
It's fine. I'll go to you then, Rachael.
Well, Rachael said something in the chat about this being a rom-com, and this is basically jocks versus nerds, right? I mean, the shepherds are the poets, and the foresters are the, rugged men. Silvanus means man of the woods, Montanus means man of the mountains.
What does Dorcas mean?
Your guess is as good as mine.
I thought Dorcas was a girl's name.
I've seen it used as a girl's name, so I don't know what Dorcas is up to, but let's not be gender normative. Let your flag fly, Dorcas. And
just a forester. I mean, there's no reason why foresters can't be women or whatever they want to be.
Yeah. So that's basically what I was gonna say. That I don't know if you had. I don't know who you would have played by a boy actor, or if everyone were played by boy actors, or some people were played by adult actors. But this is where you put your slightly more butch dudes.
Yeah, I'm really interested actually to who the actual performers for this were, because I don't seem to have any data on that. Anyway, Rachael.
To the rom-com thing, like, I think you could. This is a great play so far, even though you could keep the language of them talking about Arcadia, that you could transport it to a place like NYC or London and have it be like one of those things, because there's always those scenes where she's complaining to her best friend about the guy and he's complaining to his best friend about the girl, and then there's a bunch of builders talking about something, about love, and all these cutting scenes back and forth. That would be interesting on film. Or maybe you could do something like that movie, Saturday Night, Sunday Morning, that one, where it's it's an older one, where the guy's more just, I don't know, a different class from the girl, or the builders are a different class.
Yeah, I was thinking on the high school note of just Arcadia High, and shepherds is some form of school based activity, and the foresters are obviously the football team. Tom.
Well, I was just thinking, with such a sort of prestigious audience, would not lots of people want to be seen in, sort of like eye candy so everybody would be vying just to sort of like, oh, make me a forester, so I can just be seen by all these great people. And so I think I think people would vie to be sort of like in the background even.
Yes, we don't know how many foresters enter. We just know how many speak. There could be a lot of, foresters being foresty. Any other thoughts before we move on? Eric.
There's a part of me think that is reminded of the scene in the Lily play where all the nymphs are falling in love head over heels with each other. I think it's Galatea, right? Or well, pretty much any other Lily play that features nymphs and Cupid, and they just bind him for time up and sort of torture him by giving him chores to do, or them. I don't know. Yeah, and yeah, it's kind of. I like to think of this as sort of a tribute to Lily as well, in a sort of same vein.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of Lily love here, as well as other stuff that we haven't necessarily done yet. Pastoral is increasingly a thing by the time we get to this play, so there is other pastorals are available, but we may not have done them yet. Rachael, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's like that one Lily play. The one where at the end the two girls marry each other.
Yeah. There's a lot of Galatea in this. But I think also just the general comment, there's a lot of Lily overall. There's a lot of this kind of play throughout his oeuvre, which we can recommend because we've done a fair amount on. Anyway, we're going to move on. Exit Foresters, Act 2, Scene 2, enter Lidia and Phillis, as it were.
You must not, Phillis, be so sensible of these small touches which your passion makes.
Small touches, Lidia? Do you count the small? Can there not unto a woman worse befall than hath to me? What? Have not I lost all that is most dear to us, love and my fame? Is there a third thing, Lidia, you can name that is so precious as to match thee with these?
Now, silly girl, how fondly do you talk? How have you lost your fame? What, for a few ill-favoured loving words uttered in jest unto a foolish youth? Cannot you say you did, but to make trial how you could? If such a peevish qualm of passion should, as never shall, oppress your tender heart, frame your conceit to speak, to look, to sigh like to a heart-struck lover, and that you, perceiving him to be a bashful youth, thought to put spirit in him and make you sport.
Lydia, but he saw I did not sport. He saw my tears and more. What shall I say? He saw too much, and that which never man shall ever see again, whilst I have breath.
Are you so simple as you make yourself? What did he see? A counterfeited show of passion, which you may, if you were wise, make him as easily to unbelieve as what he never saw, and think his eyes conspired his understanding to deceive. How many women, think you, being espied in nearer touching cases by mischance, have yet not only faced their lovers down from what they saw, but brought them to believe they had not seen the thing which they had seen, yea, and to swear it too, and to condemn themselves? Such means can wit devise to make men's minds uncredit their own eyes, and therefore let not such a toy as this disease your thoughts. And for your loss of love, it is as much as nothing. I would turn a passion upon that should overturn it clean, and that is wrath. One heat expels another. I would make my thoughts of scorn to be in height so much above my love, as they should ease and please me more by far. I would disdain to cast a look that way where he should stand, unless it were in scorn, or think a thought of him but how to work him all disgrace that possibly I could.
That, Lydia, I can never do. Let him do what he will for me. Report my shame and vaunt his fortune, and my weakness blame.
Nay, as for that, he shall be so well charmed ere I have done, as you shall fear no tales.
Ah, Lydia, could that he without this his harm, how blessed should I be? But see where comes my great tormentor, that rude forester. Good Lydia, let us fly. I hate his sight next to me, the ill I suffer. Let us fly. We shall be troubled with him woefully.
Content you, Phillis. Stay, and hear him speak. We may make use of him more than you think.
What use can of so gross a piece be made?
The better use, be sure, for being gross. Your subtle spirits, full of their finesses, serve their own terms in others' businesses.
And with such an excellent rhyme, enter Montanus, who has seen something nasty in the woodshed.
What pleasure can I take to chase wild beasts, when I myself am chased more eagerly by mine own passions, and can find no rest? Let them who have their heart at liberty attend those sports. I cannot be from hence, where I received my hurt. Here must I tread the maze of my perplexed misery, and here see where she is the cause of all. And now, what shall I do? What shall I say? How shall I look? How stand? Which utter first? My lover wrath? Alas, I know not which. Now, were it not as good have been away, as thus to come, and not tell what to say?
See, Lidia, see how savagely he looks. Good, let us go. I never shall endure to hear him bellow.
Prithee, Phillis, stay and give him yet the hearing. In respect, he loves you, otherwise you show yourself a savage more than he.
Well, it I hear. I will not answer him a word. You shall reply. And prithee, Lidia, do reply for me.
For that we shall, Phillis, do well enough when he begins, who seems is very long to give the onset. Sure the man is much perplexed, or he studies what to say.
Good Lidia, see how he hath tricked himself. Now sure this gay fresh suit, as seems to me, hangs like green ivy on a rotten tree.
Some beasts do wear grey beards beside your goats, and bear with him, this suit bewrays young thoughts.
Was it not enough to be oppressed with that confounding passion of my love and her disdain? That I must be torn with wrath and envy too, and have no vein free from the rack of sufferings, that I can nor speak nor think but most distractedly. How shall I now begin, that have no way to let out any passion by itself, but that they all will thrust together so as none will be expressed as they ought? But something I must say now I am here, and be it what it will, love, envy, wrath, or all together in a cumberment, my words must be like me, perplexed and rent, and so all to her.
Lidia, see, he comes.
He comes indeed, and as methinks, doth bear more trouble in his face by far than love.
Fair Phillis, and too fair for such a one, show, unless you kinder were, or better than I know you are, how much I have endured for you, although you scorn to know, I feel, and did imagine that in being a man who might deserve regard, I should have been preferred before a boy. But well, I see your seeming and your being disagree.
What, Lidia, doth he brawl? What means he thus to speak and look in this strange sort on me?
Well, modest Phillis, never looked so coy. These eyes beheld you dallying with a boy.
Me with a boy? Montanus? When? Where? How?
Today, here, in most lascivious sort.
Belike he saw you, Phillis, when, this morning, you did strive with Cloris, boy, to have your garland, which he snatched away, and kept it from you by strong force and might, And you again laid hold upon the same, and held it fast, until, with much ado, he wrung it from your hands and got away, and this is that great matter which he saw. Now fie, Montanus, fie! Are you so gross to imagine such a worthy nymph as she would be in love with such a youth as he? Why, now you have undone your credit quite. You never can make her amends for this. So impious a surmise nor ever can. She, as she reason hath, but must despise your grossness. Who should rather have come in and righted her than suffer such a one to offer an indignity so vile, and you stand prying in a bush the while?
What do I hear? What? Am I not myself? How? Have mine eyes double undone me then? First seeing Phillis' face, and now her fact, or else the fact I saw I did not see? And since thou hast my understanding wronged, and traitor-like given false intelligence, whereby my judgment comes to pass amiss, and yet I think my sense was in the right, and yet in this amaze I cannot tell, but howsoe'er I in an error am, in loving, or believing, or in both. And therefore, Phillis, at thy feet I fall, and pardon crave for this my gross surmise.
But this, Montanus, will not now suffice. You have quite lost her, and your hopes, and all.
Good Lidia, yet entreat her to relent, and let her but command me anything that is within the power of man to do. And you shall find Montanus will perform more than a giant, and will stead her more than all the herdsmen in Arcadia can.
She will command you nothing, but I wish you would a little terrify that boy, as he may never dare to use her name but in all reverence as is fit for her. But do not you examine him a word, for that were neither for your dignity nor hers, that such a boy as he should stand and justify himself in such a case, who would but feign untruths unto your face. And herein you some service shall perform, as may perhaps make her to think on you.
Alas, this is a work so far, so low beneath my worth, as I account it none. Were it to encounter some fierce mountain beast or monster, it were something fitting me. But yet this will I do, and do at home. Assure you, Lidia, as I live I will.
But yet I would not have you hurt the youth, for that would neither grace for you nor me.
That as my rage will tolerate must be.
And exit. Dodgy plan there. Yeah, just scare the boy, will you? That's Lidia speaking, of course. And yeah, so it's that thing of going, oh God, I've made a fool of myself in front of the boy, and everybody knows. Oh God, they're talking about it around the whole school, and the school guidance counsellor says, "Don't worry, I'll sort it out for you." I've decided that's what Lidia is. I've decided it's not even a best friend. It's a really inappropriate, really, really wrong guidance counsellor type figure.
What, like the one from Heather's?
Yeah, just the kind of person who just would get sacked. And then is asked to speak for Phillis and try and going, oh, what, me? It wasn't me? No, I to help me. And it's just wrote busted next to that little bit there. And then Lidia just goes off on one and then turns it all round again. What were you doing sitting in the bushes watching? Perv. So yeah, there's so much to relate to. Thoughts in the room, Liza.
It seems to me that what Lidia is doing here is what we would now call gaslighting. That she's making Montanus doubt that he saw the thing he saw. And therefore to think that his reaction was in error and he should be ashamed of himself. And, to be fair, she's doing it, maybe there might be an ounce of good in her motivation to preserve Phyllis's reputation, but then what should Phyllis care what a rugged wild man thinks of her. I don't know. Anyway, I don't see any way this can end badly.
No, I think this is all a good plan, and it will be fine when they terrify that boy, which of course again is Lydia's
Who's a
thing.
girl?
Yeah, well, they don't know that. But in the logic here is, of course, is Lydia's plan, because of course that might shake Phillis out of it as well, out of her side of it as well, and it's all part of her cunning schemes. Any other thoughts before we go into our final unit of action, as it were? Angela.
I'm looking for an ending where Phillis gets together with the one who's in love with the other woman. Hang on, what was
What, Cloris?
Yes, exactly.
Well, those two do seem to deserve each other.
Yes, exactly. I think this is the thing. The reason they're not satisfied is because they're just looking in the wrong direction.
Well, we shall see whether it goes there. I suspect that's not where the narrative will push us, but hey, we can adjust. So let's see where it goes as we return to our favourite of double acts. Act 2, Scene 4. Enter Cloris and Clarindo, or Sylvia in disguise.
Here comes my long-expected messenger. God grant the news he brings may make amends for his long stay. I'm sure I hope it will. Methinks his face betrays more jollity in his returning than in going acts.
Well, all is well. Now Amaryllis hath supplanted Sylvia's love in Thyrsis' heart, nor any shall. But see where Cloris looks for what I shall not bring her at this time.
Clarindo, though my longing would be fain dispatched at once, and hear my doom pronounced, all in the word of either life or death, yet do not tell it but by circumstance. Tell me the man her word, how that fans my thirsts. What he said, how looked, how fared, how you received my message, use thee, and all in brief, but yet be sure tell.
Oh, with that will I tell as near as I can tell. First, after tedious searching up and down, I found him all alone, like a hurt deer, gone under cover in a shady grove, hard by a little crystal purling spring, which but one sullen note of murmur held, where no sun could see him, where no eye might overlook his lonely primacy. There, in a path of his own making, trod bare as a common way, yet led no way beyond the turns he made, which were but short, with arms across his hat down on his eyes, as if to shield those shades yielded not shade enough to darken them. He walks with often stops, uneven pace, like motions to his thoughts. And when he heard me coming, for his ears were quicker watches than his eyes, it seemed, he suddenly looks up, stays suddenly, and with a brow that told how much the sight of any interrupter troubled him, beheld me without speaking any word, as if expecting what I had to say. I, finding him in this confused dismay, who heretofore had seen him otherwise, I must confess. For tell you all I must, a trembling passion overwhelmed my breast, and so that I likewise stood confused and dumb, and only looked on him as he on me. In this strange posture, like two statues, we remained a while, but with this difference said, he blushed, and I was pale. My face did show joy to see him, his troubled to be seen, at length bethinking me for what I came, what part I had to act. I roused my spirits and set myself to speak, although I wished he would first have begun, and yet before a word would issue, twice I bowed my knee, twice kissed my hand. My action so much was more ready than my tongue. At last I told whose messenger I was, and how I came to intimate the sad, distressed case of an afflicted nymph, whose only help remained in him. He, when he heard the name of Cloris, turns away his head and shrinks, as if he grieved that you should grieve for him.
No. No, it has troubled him to hear my name, which he despises. She's so perverse and wayward still. Oh, then I see no hope. Clarindo, would to God thou hadst not gone, I could be, but as now I am undone!
Have patience, mistress, but hear the rest. When I perceived his suffering with the touch and sudden stop it gave him, presently I laid on all the weights that motion might procure, and him besought, adjured, invoked by all the sights or all the rights of nature, piety, and manliness to hear my message out. Told him how much the matter did import your safety and his fame, how he was bound in all humanity to write the same.
That was well done, my boy. What said he then?
He turns about and fixed his eyes on me, content to give his ears a quiet leave to hear me. When I failed not to relate all I had in charge and all he hears, and looks directly on me all the while.
I doubt you noted him more than thy words. But now, Clarindo, what was his reply?
Thus, tell fair Cloris, my good boy, how that I am not so disnatured a man, or so ill-born to disesteem her love, or not grieve, as protest I do, that she should so afflict herself for me. But
Now comes the bitter word of but, which makes all nothing. That was said before. That smooth and wounds, that strokes and dashes more than flat denials, were plain disgrace. Oh, but tell me yet but what followed on that but?
Tell her, said he, that I desired she would redeem herself at any price she could, and never let her think on me, who am but even the bark and outside of a man, that traits not with the living, neither can nor will ever keep other company than with the dead. My Sylvia's memory is all that I must ever live withal. Without his tears, which likewise have forced mine, set me again upon another rack of passion, so that of myself I sought to comfort him the best I could devise. And I besought him that he would not be transported thus, but know that with the dead he should no longer converse, and how his love was living, and that would give him all content, and was all his entire and pure, and wished to live no longer than she should be so. When more I would have said, he shook his head and willed me speak no further at that time, but leave him to himself, and to return again anon, and he would tell me more, commending me for having done the part both of a true and moving messenger. And so I took my leave and came my way.
Return again? No, to what end is, if he be so conceited and so fond to entertain a shadow? I have done. I wish that I had never done so much. Try to send below myself to send to what does not himself. Let him alone with his dead tongue. So with his dead image, you shall go no more. Have I here framed with all the art I could this garden, decked with all the various flowers Arcadia yields, in hope he would send back some comfort? I might therewith have crowned his love and win his mind in the endless round of this fair ring, the character of faith. Now we should have none of it. I rather will rend it into pieces and shatter all into it like chaos, like his formless thoughts. But yet thou sayest he will thee to return, and he will tell thee more.
Yes, so he said.
Perhaps thy words might yet to work with him as that he takes his time to think on them, and that I should do wrong to keep thee back. Well, I shall go and carry him from me, this garland. Work. Work, what effect it will, but yet I know it will do nothing. Stay. I shall not go. For sure he said that to put thee off, that he might be alone. And this is idolatry. And he's worshipping and nothing but his self-made images. Yet he may be wearied with those thoughts as having worn them long and named they must. And this is my message coming in fit time and movingly delivered may take hold. He said there went a moving message of Clarindo, did he not?
Yes, so he said.
Well, thou shalt go, and yet if any thoughts on me should move him, he knows well my mind, if not too well away, he may be fined. Thou shalt not go, Clarindo, nor will I disgrace me more with importunity. And if such a motion should take fire and find no matter ready, it would out, and opportunities must not be slacked. Clarindo, thou shalt go, and as thou guessed, look to my flock. So God speed thee well.
And exit Cloris, having given her instructions to Clarindo, alias Sylvia, who is left on stage. Clarindo.
Apologies, because you said last unit of action. I thought we were, yeah, okay. Apologies, sorry. Well, this employment makes for my avail. For hereby have I means to see my love, who likewise sees me, though he sees me not. Nor do I see him as I would I did, but I must by some means or other make him know I live. Yet not so as he may know that I am I, for fear we might miscarry in our joys by overhaste. But it is more than time his sufferings were relieved in some close sort, and that I can devise no way to do, but by relating how he heard of an escape a nymph did make from pirates lately, and was safe returned. And so to tell some story that contains our fortunes and our loves in other names, and wish him to expect the like event. For I perceive him very well content to hear me speak, and sure he hath some note, though so darkly drawn, as that his eyes cannot expressly read it. Yet it shows him something which he rather feels than knows.
And we close Act 2 with the song of the second chorus.
Desire that is of things ungot, see what travail it procureth, and how much the mind endureth, to gain what yet it gaineth not. For never was it paid, the charge defrayed, according to the price of thought.
Lovely. So I like Sylvia's thinking there, of overthinking there at the end. So I've got to let him know that I'm not dead, but I can't let him know that I'm me. So it's got to be by some other thing that he'll get it, and it just yeah. Maybe a more direct route might be better. Might save you some problems. I really liked some of Cloris's stuff. Some really nice stuff there. He knows well my mind, if not too well. Just. Really nice things. Angela.
I think the thing here is that we, somehow for an audience to understand this, it needs to be emphasised that Sylvia can't make herself known before the wedding day has passed. Isn't it? So that's why. So I guess that's why she's being ludicrous in being too afraid of them being, throwing themselves at each other too early.
Yeah, because yes, we've had this sort of reference, and they've talked about the threat that she's in with the rival suitor, who is now marrying someone else and stuff. But we've never met any of those people, and I don't know if we do later on. I can't remember. So there is that sort of background stuff that you have to get across. But it's the kind of show where lots of dumb shows is possible. I feel that there's a lot of. It's like between Act 1 and Act 2 that they're all reacting to a scene that we haven't seen. the meeting between Phillis and Clarindo that we haven't seen, and Montanus, and everybody's reacting to that, but we haven't actually seen it happen. So that again could be a dumb showy kind of thing between the acts. So yes, I think there is a bit of dramaturgical stuff that just to really hammer home some things. Other thoughts, Eric?
I feel like I need a diagram of who's in love with who. Just because it's a bit like, kind of Phillis is in love with Clarindo, who is actually Sylvia, who is in love with... Yeah, it can get quite a bit.
With Thyrsis, who is in love with Sylvia, so yeah.
Yeah, but then you have like Cloris, who's in love with Thyrsis also. It's like sort of a mashup.
Yeah, and Montanus, who's in love with Phillis. Yeah. Eric, not Eric, you've just spoken. Tom.
This is entertainment. No, it has characters, it has plot twists. You have people sitting in the audience explaining exactly who's who to what and who, and you have fabulous comedy and repartee. So it's fit for a king.
And it's definitely fit for a wedding. I mean, I do like the conceit of at the beginning, this idea of sort of testing love in this context of a wedding. It's a really interesting idea, and it's light enough, and it's dancing around certain themes and individual set pieces. It's doing some really, really fun stuff. I'm going to go around final thoughts in a moment, so start gathering them. But Eric, before we do that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if sort of Hymen and the others are just sitting around, well, maybe not around the stage, but like somewhere visible to remind you that there's actually a frame device to this whole thing. Because you could just sort of, it could be sort of like, the whole history, comedy, tragedy one of like the, Arden and Famersham and all those kind of plays. Although I think that might be Warning to Fair Women.
Well, yeah, I think it's Warning to Fair Women, yeah.
There's too many true crime plays in,
Still a few more to go. So, yeah, I mean, there is an interesting question. Is there doubling between envy, avarice and jealousy within the cast, or are they just still lingering? Are they just sitting there? Are they standing behind people going, I will make him envious. I will make them, are they... and jealous. I will make them jealous, and I will. Avarice hasn't really come in actually yet. I don't think. I suppose there is some. Yes, there is, isn't there?
Forresters were saying about him.
Yeah, Forresters. They're all those wealthy shepherds. Whew, they've got so much cash swatting around. They're giving them heirs. That's what it's doing. It's giving them heirs. Yeah. Okay, final thoughts. Greg, do you have anything to throw into the hat?
Oh my God, what a pair of characters I had. Though the not Cloris, the other one wasn't quite so exciting. I when we first stopped after I'd done that first scene, I thought, oh no, I've been inventing it, but I actually went back and I thought, no, it's in the text. That second scene again. Glorious. Part of me regrets we don't keep characters across the two nights, because I would love to have finished those two off. But I'm looking forward to seeing what happens on Thursday. Sorry, part 2 for those who are watching online.
Yes, they have no idea what day it is. But then again, neither do I.
I was going to say, nor do I, so don't worry.
Yeah. I mean, there are really clear character differentiations going on. There are some really bold characters doing some really fun stuff. It's something an actor can get their teeth into. Liza, any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, one thing I like about this play, which I think makes it work, is that the characters are all really strongly drawn. It is the sort of play where someone comes on stage, or a person or two people come on stage, and they say they tell the audience what's bothering them, and they hatch a terrible plan, and then they leave. So in that sort of play, it can very much feel like one of those clocks where the figurines just appear mechanically. But no, I mean, Daniel is employing all the methods of exposition at his disposal here, and it actually is really entertaining. No, I'm liking this. I care about what happens, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I do suspect the dramaturgy is partly logistical, that he's working, but he's making that work of having a very limited number of people on stage at any one time, and it's giving us a lot to play with. I'm trying to remember what Queen's Arcadia was like, because this is very much Redux return to Arcadia, and now I'm starting to think of the two in conjunction with each other, though I think there's a fair span of years between the two. Off the top of my head, I can't remember for certain. Eric, any final thoughts?
Well, in Queen's Arcadia, it was a bit different because we had the whole Arcadia is not what it used to be by two random guys who sort of were basically, the two old guys in the Muppets. And then whose names I can't pronounce, so yeah, I'm not gonna try right now. You had a love plot, and then sort of I'm gonna kill myself if you don't love me, and it's if play ends, but in a weird way. I can't remember the ending, so that's quite bad. This one is a lot more sort of bouncing along quite happily, this one is actually quite fun to read. Compared to the other one, which because I imagine if everyone actually goes there with like sort of genuine sort of emotion, you have like this sort of truly romantic plot mixing with like Mean Girls, which is quite like in a musical format as well. So you've got a bit of everything. What more do you want?
Yeah, and I think it's got a lot of potential. I was talking about dumb shows and other action just to really explicate some of the gaps and just break up some of the more schematic sort of natures of it all. Queen's Arcadia is nearly 10 years ago in writing terms. It's a better part of a decade. So it'd be really interesting now to go back and see how the two connect or don't connect, actually. Tom, any final thoughts?
Well, just on that, the writer would have been a success in the way he wrote and the themes he wrote upon, and so yeah, he's just done the same theme, but really is hit his stride. I think it has, as I said, fabulous entertainment.
Excellent. Angela, any final thoughts?
Well, I'm with Tom. I just think it's fun, really, really entertaining. It's been tremendous fun. It's funny. There's great characters, but the big plus for me is the discovery that Rachael is just an amazing singer, and what it does to have a voice like that, a really kind of like Liza was saying, this kind of like jazzy voice, doing this kind of early modern things, and that's it. She's got to sing some of her ballads.
Yeah, more of Rachel's excellent singing can be heard on our YouTube channel. I forget which play it was that closed with a song that that was one of the first times I'd heard Rachael sing, and it was just rendered beautifully. So I was very glad to have you as the chorus in this one.
Yes, there are lots of occasions when Rachael has been pushed forward to sing by entirely random chance. Rachael.
What everybody else said is just I really enjoyed this one. I really like Samuel Daniel. I like his poetry. I like I like his subtle character building that he brings out. And there's stuff, we were talking about Lily. I think Angela or somebody else in the chat put, Emma, Jane Austen's Emma, shades of Jane Austen and, even Molière, these people to come that make me think, they probably read some of his stuff, and yeah, I think this would be a great rom-com, and you could get some laughs out of people as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I don't think we have to be too exclusive to our High School Musical setting for this. Though I do think actually it works quite well. That all of that's mix. And it does sort of spark in a really, really satisfying way. Okay, all that remains is for it to horribly disappoint us next time, as is traditional for us to get really excited about something and then find the ending slightly disappointing. But you know, maybe this will be one of the exceptions to that rule, and we won't have to do massive surgery to the second half. We shall see. Until that exciting turn of events occurs, all that remains to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Terrify that boy.